In this video, I'm going to discuss a bunch of specifics about the book 1984 written by George Orwell. The topics of this video will be monopolies, history altering, propaganda, oppressive governments, and social engineering. Social Darwinism is also a topic of discussion within this episode. I will then explain what you can do on an individual level to prevent yourself from falling into an Orwellian state. If you're watching the full episode on the podcast channel, all the sections will be timestamped in the description. If you're watching on the Clips channel, make sure to watch all episodes to get the best understanding of this topic. I hope you enjoy, and if you have any criticisms, leave them in the description below. Alright, now on to today's podcast. War is not uncommon in history. It is heavily involved with geopolitics today when you look at Ukraine, Israel, or Myanmar. To a lot of people, war itself is very controversial, but in reality, the outcome of war is what sparks the most controversy. This is because the victorious nations want to push their ideologies onto people. Over time, these ideologies of the various nations begin to fight over who will rule the world forever. This is how the Cold War came to exist. It is also how 1984 came to be. Before the current period within the book's plot, there is a Third World War between the United States and Soviet Union. This was used to reflect the worries of nuclear war at the times that the book was published, which was in 1949. When looking at this war short-sighted, it brings a light to how destructive a nuclear war would have been between the United States and the Soviet Union, but by talking about how North America and all of Europe would have been destroyed by this conflict. When looking into the situation deeper, this war was also the destruction of all normal and humane cultures, religions, and lifestyles that were practiced at the time. As in the real world, obviously there has not been a nuclear war, and at least not yet, but there was an event in the real world that was not predicted in 1984, and that would be the computer revolution in the 1990s. The technological revolution physically cannot be compared to a nuclear war, but socially it has hit society like a mental nuke. During this revolution, the internet came to be. At this point in time in history, the entire world is now connected through their computers. In 1984, after the Third World War ended, all remaining powers began to grab as much land as possible. The Soviet Union took over all mainland Europe, making Eurasia. The United States took over the United Kingdom and all Latin America, making Oceania. Soon though, these two superpowers fell into civil war. During the civil wars, East Asia fell into chaos as China and Japan joined together to take over as much land in Asia, making the third superstate known as East Asia. This period in 1984 can both be explained by the geopolitical landscape of today and the use of the internet historically. After World War II, the United States helped form the Western Military Pact known as NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. On the other hand, the Soviet Union created the Eastern Military Pact known as the Warsaw Pact. This was a period in history where the two remaining superpowers took advantage of multitude of weakened nations by pretty much saying, if you promise to protect us from the other guy, we will give you money to help fund your military. When it comes to the internet, we can see something similar. As the internet was new, web browsers were very abundant. These browsers consisted of Samba, Mosaic, Webscape, Netscape, Internet Explorer, and Opera. But in the year 2000, the tech bubble popped. The investors within the tech industry sold their investment en masse. This ended up with a lot of tech companies going out of business or getting sold to other higher earning tech companies. Over 2 decades after the tech bubble boom, the tech industry has recovered and is more popular and powerful as ever. Today, the only 3 web browsers make up a supermajority of all online searches. Google Chrome makes up 65.7%, Apple Safari with 18%, Microsoft Edge with 5.2%, and the rest with 11.1%. This means the top 3 browsers control 88.9% of all online searches. This is very similar to how the United States took military control of Western Europe and the Soviet Union with Eastern Europe. This is also very similar to how in 1984 the Soviet Union became Eurasia, the United States became Oceania, and Japan became East Asia. It's almost insane to comprehend how quickly companies and governments are able to gain this much power, but that usually is because you don't really know if someone or something will be as powerful as they are until it happens. Unless you're a genius that's really good at making formulas that can predict the growth of power over time.